Hello everyone. Here are the 10 most haunted ships in history. Number 10. Submarine UB-65. The submarine UB-65 was a U-boat built by the German Imperial Navy in 1916, and before it was even completed it had already acquired a dark, ominous reputation for death. The construction of this sub was plagued by numerous freak accidents and horrific deaths. There was no explanation for what had caused the deaths. One of the earliest ghostly sightings aboard the sub was made during a lookout up in the tower when he noticed someone standing down on the deck directly below him, which was unusual since all of the hatches had been battened down and there should have been no one there. When the mysterious figure looked up, the lookout could clearly see that it was Lieutenant Richter, the second officer who had been killed in the freak torpedo accident. The ghostly Richter reportedly shouted some sort of warning and disappeared when the lookout began screaming in terror. Shortly after this, a panicked crewman ran to tell others that he had seen the dead Richter casually strolling about on deck. The captain thought the crewman was just seeing things, but nevertheless went to investigate the deck, where he found another crewman cowering in fright near the conning tower. This terrified crewman confirmed that the dead second officer had sort of hovered off of the ground up the gangplank and had stopped to look out over the sea before simply vanishing into thin air. Number 9. Young Teazer. Young Teazer was a United States privateer schooner which was blew up by its own crew member Lieutenant Johnson at Mahone Bay, Nova Scotia during the War of 1812 after a series of British warships chased her and after HMS Hope trapped her. The schooner became famous for the deadly explosion that killed most of her crew and for the folklore about the ghostly Teazer light. Almost a year later to the day a ghost ship was first seen near Chester in Mahone Bay. This was the first of many appearances. Hundreds have seen a burning ship out on the bay. Many state this ship just appears out of nowhere. Others have reported seeing this burning ship head right for them. Terrified, they felt it was about to run them down only to see it vanish at the last second. Sometimes this ship passes so close to the shore, witnesses on the beach can even make out seamen up in its riggings. In most documented reports it is stated the ship appeared to be on fire. This is why people believe that it is the ghost ship of the young Teazer. Some have even stated they heard the tortured cries of the men who were trying to escape this flaming ghost ship. Number 8. MV Joyita. MV Joyita was a merchant vessel from which 25 passengers and crew mysteriously disappeared in the South Pacific in 1955. It was found adrift in the South Pacific with no one aboard. The ship was in very poor condition, with corroded pipes and a radio which, while functional, had a range of only about 2 miles because of faulty wiring. However, the extreme buoyancy of the ship made sinking nearly impossible. Investigators were puzzled as to why the crew had not remained on board and waited for help. A search and rescue mission was launched from 6th to the 12th of October. Sunderlands of the Royal New Zealand Air Force covered a probability area of nearly 100,000 square miles of ocean during the search. But no sign of the Joyita nor any of her passengers or crew was found. 5 weeks later, on November 10th, Gerald Douglas, captain of the merchant ship Tuvalu, en route from Suvet to Funafuti, sighted the Joyita more than 600 miles west from her scheduled route, drifting north of Vanuatu. The ship was partially submerged and listing heavily and there was no trace of any of the passengers or crew. 4 tons of cargo were also missing. As of 2012, all aboard were still declared as missing. Number 7. Caleuche. The Caleuche is a ghost ship that appears every night near the island of Chiloé, which is an island off the coast of Chile. The ship appears as a beautiful and bright white sailing ship, with 3 masts of 5 sails each. The ship is always full of lights and with the sounds of a party and the people on board laughing. After she is spotted, the ship is then said to disappear or submerge itself under the water. The ghost ship is also known to be able to navigate while underwater. The ship is not just any type of ship. The Caleuche is said to be a kind of conscious being that sails the waters around the area. She carries the spirits of all those who have drowned at sea. According to Chilote mythology, the spirits of the drowned are summoned to the ship by 3 Chilota water spirits. After appearing for a few moments, the ship is then said to disappear or submerge itself under the water. According to legend, the spirits of the drowned are summoned to the ship by Serena Chilota, her sister Pincoya, and her brother Picoy. Serena Joyita resembles what we know as mermaids, with the upper body and face of a teen, with long blonde hair and golden scales. Pinkoya is said to have long blonde hair, be of incomparable beauty, be cheerful and sensual, and rise from the depths of the sea with her totally human-like body. Number 6. Lady Lovibond. Lady Lovibond is the name given to a legendary schooner that is alleged to have been wrecked on the Goodwin Sands, off the Kent coast of southeast England, on the 13th of February 1748, and is said to reappear there every 50 years as a ghost ship. No contemporary records of the ship or its supposed sinking are to be found. The story goes that the ship was at sea on the 13th of February because her captain, Simon Reed, had just been married and was celebrating the occasion with a cruise. According to several accounts, the ship was bound for Oporto in Portugal. Despite the long-standing sailor superstition that it was bad luck to bring a woman on board, Reed had brought his bride Annetta with him on the ship. According to legend, the first mate, John Rivers, a rival for the hand of the captain's young wife, was pacing the decks in jealous anger. While the captain, his wife and their guests were celebrating the marriage below deck, the first mate was seized with a fit of jealous rage. Casually drawing a heavy, club-like belaying pin from the rail, the mate walked softly up behind the crew member at the wheel and felled him to the deck with one crushing blow. Rivers then seized the wheel and steered the ship onto the treacherous Goodwin Sands, killing everyone aboard. The last report to be filed was made in 1948 by Captain Bull Prestwick. He allegedly sighted the Lady Lovibond and considered her to be a real vessel and not a ghost ship. This was despite his admission that the vessel was giving off a strange and eerie green glow. No known report was made in 1998, but a vast number of people, having heard the history of the sightings, turned up in the expectation of seeing the vessel for themselves. Number 5. The SS Valencia. The SS Valencia was an iron-hulled passenger steamer built as a minor ocean liner for the Red Bee Line for service between Venezuela and New York City. Valencia was wrecked off Cape Beale, which is near Caleuche, on the west coast of Vancouver Island, British Columbia, in 1906. Since her sinking killed 100 people, some classify the wreck of Valencia as the worst maritime disaster in the graveyard of the Pacific, a famously treacherous area off the southwest coast of Vancouver Island. Valencia's dramatic end has made her the subject of several local rumors and ghost stories. 6 months after the sinking, local Native Americans claimed to have seen a lifeboat with 8 skeletons in a nearby sea cave at the shoreline of Pachena Bay. The mouth of the cave was obstructed by a large boulder and the cave was reported to be around 200 feet deep. There was no definite explanation for the lifeboat's presence in the cave, but it was believed that high tide had lifted the boat into the cave's mouth. Due to the dangerous seas outside the cave's mouth, the lifeboat along with its human remains were unable to be recovered. Local fishermen similarly reported lifeboats being rowed by skeletons of Valencia's victims. In 1910, the Seattle Times reported that sailors claimed to have seen a phantom ship resembling Valencia near Pachena Point. The sailors observed waves washing over the phantom steamer as human figures held on to the ship's rigging for dear life. Similar apparitions were reported for years following the disaster. Number 4. Ourang Medan. The SS Ourang Medan was a ghost ship which became a shipwreck in Dutch East Indies waters after its entire crew had died under suspicious circumstances. The story of the Ourang Medan has become something of a legend. According to the story, at some point in or around June 1947, 2 American vessels navigating the Strait of Malacca, City of Baltimore and Silver Star, picked up distress messages from Dutch merchant ship Ourang Medan. A radio operator aboard the troubled vessel sent the following Morse code message: SOS. From Ourang Medan, we float. All officers including the captain, dead in chart room and on the bridge. Probably whole of crew dead. A few confused dots and dashes later 2 words came through clearly. They were, I die. Then, nothing more. When Silver Star crew located and boarded the apparently undamaged Ourang Medan in a rescue attempt, the ship was found littered with corpses, including the carcass of a dog. The frozen faces upturned to the sun with mouths gaping open and eyes staring. The dead bodies resembled horrible caricatures, with no survivors and no visible signs of injuries on the dead bodies. A fire then broke out in the ship's number 4 cargo hold, forcing the boarding parties to evacuate the Dutch freighter, thus preventing any further investigation. Soon after, Ourang Medan was observed to explode and sink. Number 3. The Mary Celeste. Mary Celeste was an American merchant brigantine, discovered adrift and deserted in the Atlantic Ocean, off the Azores Islands, on December 5, 1872. The Canadian brigantine Dei Gratia found her in a disheveled but seaworthy condition, under partial sail, and with her lifeboat missing. The last entry in her log was dated 10 days earlier. She had left New York City for Genoa on November 7, and on discovery was still amply provisioned. Her cargo of denatured alcohol was intact, and the captain's and crew's personal belongings were undisturbed. None of those who had been on board were ever seen or heard from again. The inconclusive nature of the hearings helped to foster continued speculation as to the nature of the mystery, and the story has repeatedly been complicated by false detail and fantasy. Hypotheses that have been advanced include the effects on the crew of alcohol fumes rising from the cargo, submarine earthquakes, waterspouts, attacks by giant squid, and paranormal intervention. The story of her 1872 abandonment has been recounted and dramatized many times in documentaries and films, and the name of the ship has become a byword for unexplained desertion. Number 2. The Queen Mary. The RMS Queen Mary is a retired ocean liner that sailed primarily on the North Atlantic Ocean from 1936 to 1967. Queen Mary was the flagship of the Cunard Line from May 1936 until October 1946, when she was replaced in that role by Queen Elizabeth. Following Queen Mary's permanent docking in California, claims were made that the ship was haunted. One of the staterooms is alleged to be haunted by the spirit of a person who supposedly was murdered there. Paranormal researcher John Champion writes that he understands why people persist in believing that Queen Mary is haunted when the only evidence given is anecdotes, creepy feelings and shadows. Tourists who sign up for the haunted tour are given access to normally off-limit areas of the ship, while tours of the history of the ship are more limited. To provide balance to John Champion's opinion, ship staff who lead the haunted tour report first-hand sightings within the Queen Mary. Of particular note, first-person sightings by ship staff and passengers of a young girl who drowned in the A-class passenger swimming pool area when the Queen Mary served as a luxury liner. Number 1. The Flying Dutchman. The Flying Dutchman is a legendary ghost ship that can never make port and is doomed to sail the oceans forever. The myth is likely to have originated from the 17th century golden age of the Dutch East India Company. The oldest extant version has been dated to the late 18th century. Sightings in the 19th and 20th centuries reported the ship to be glowing with ghostly light. If hailed by another ship, the crew of the Flying Dutchman will try to send messages to land, or to people long dead. In ocean lore, the sight of this phantom ship is a portent of doom. Captain Van der Decken has been given the moniker the Flying Dutchman, sailing his ghost ship the world over. Sailors claim the Dutchman has led ships astray, causing them to crash on hidden rocks or reefs. They say that if you look into a fierce storm brewing off the Cape of Good Hope, you will see the captain and his skeletal crew. But beware, legend has it that whoever catches sight of the Dutchman will most certainly die a gruesome death.